November 1959, Ray Charles walked into a conference room and sat down at the table. Across from him sat ABC Records' most powerful executives. Ray couldn't see their eyes, but he could feel their fear. "I want $50,000, he said quietly. "And one more thing, complete ownership of my master recordings." The room froze, because in 1959, no artist, especially no black artist, had ever demanded such a thing. This was forbidden. This was insanity. But Ray Charles was insane, and this insanity would either make him a millionaire or end his career forever. For 7 years at Atlantic Records, he generated $2.5 million in revenue. You know how much went into his pocket? $75,000. Now it was time to make his bet. But nobody knew that this gamble would change not just Ray Charles's future, but the entire music industry's destiny. But to understand why this moment was so revolutionary, we need to go back to when the music industry was America's most brutal legal scam. The slavery system. 1950s America. The music industry was booming. Rock and roll was exploding. Teenagers were buying records like never before. Radio stations were printing money. And the artists were starving. Here's how the system worked. A record label would discover a talented musician. They'd offer a contract. The musician, usually young, poor, desperate for a chance, would sign without reading. Why would they read? Most of them had never seen a contract before. Many couldn't even afford a lawyer. That contract was a trap, a beautiful legal trap. The label owned everything. The master recordings, the original studio tapes that could be reproduced and sold forever, belonged entirely to the company. The publishing rights, companies. The merchandising, companies. The touring revenue, largely the companies. The artist received a royalty, usually between 1% and 3% of sales. And even that pittance came with conditions. The label would deduct recording costs, promotion expenses, breakage fees for damaged records. By the time all the creative accounting was done, most artists owed the label money. Chuck Berry wrote Johnny B. Good, one of the most iconic songs in rock history. He died with a net worth of $10 million. His record label? They made over $100 million from his catalog. Little Richard created the sound of rock and roll. Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, Good Golly Miss Molly, songs that defined a generation. He sold the rights for $50 and a new car. He spent his final years performing at county fairs, trying to survive. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll himself, didn't own his master recordings. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had negotiated away Elvis's ownership for quick cash. When Elvis died in 1977, he left an estate worth $5 million. By 2023, his estate had generated over $1 billion, but Elvis never saw that money. The system had taken it. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't incompetence. This was design. The music industry had created a system where black artists, the people who invented blues, jazz, gospel, rock and roll, and soul, did all the creative work while white executives collected all the wealth, and everyone accepted it. This is just how the business works, they said. This is just how it's always been. Ray Charles wakes up. Ray Charles Robinson was born in 1930 in Albany, Georgia. By age 7, he was going blind from glaucoma. By age 15, he was completely orphaned. His mother dead, his father gone, his younger brother drowned in a tragic accident. Ray witnessed and never forgot. He was blind, black, and alone in Jim Crow America. The odds were impossibly stacked against him. But Ray had something nobody could take away. Genius. Pure, undeniable musical genius. He taught himself piano by ear. He learned to read music in Braille. He could hear a song once and play it back perfectly, adding his own innovations, making it better than the original. By 1952, Ray Charles had signed with Atlantic Records, an independent label run by Ahmet Ertegun and Jerry Wexler. They were good men, relatively speaking. They loved music. They respected Ray's talent, but they still operated within the system. Ray's contract was standard. Atlantic owned his masters. Ray received a small royalty. Atlantic made the creative decisions. For 7 years, Ray accepted this. He recorded hit after hit. I Got a Woman in 1954, revolutionary, mixing gospel with blues in a way nobody had dared. Churches called it blasphemy. Ray called it honesty. The song went to #1. What I Say in 1959, 12 minutes of raw, sexual energy captured in a live recording. Radio stations banned it. Teenagers bought it anyway. It became Ray's biggest hit yet. Atlantic Records was printing money. Ray was becoming famous, but Ray wasn't becoming rich. The awakening moment, the exact moment Ray Charles decided to change everything, happened in a restaurant in New York City, spring of 1959. Ray was eating dinner with Ahmet Ertegun, celebrating What I Say, hitting the charts. Ahmet was in a great mood, ordering expensive wine, talking about how much money the record was generating. "Ray, you've made Atlantic very successful," Ahmet said warmly. "We're very grateful." Ray stopped eating. "How much has What I Say made so far, Ahmet?" "Oh, it's still early, but we're projecting maybe $500,000 in revenue over the next year." Ray was silent for a moment. His fingers drummed on the table, a habit when he was thinking intensely. "And how much of that comes to me?" Ahmet's voice became careful. "Well, Ray, you know how it works. There are costs, recording, promotion, distribution. But you'll see a good royalty check, I promise." "How much, Ahmet?" "Maybe 15,000? Could be more." Ray's jaw tightened. 15,000 out of 500,000. 3% for a song he wrote, for a performance he created, for a recording that would generate money for decades. "Ahmet," Ray said quietly, "I love you like a brother. You've been good to me. But this system, it's wrong, and I can't live with it anymore." Ahmet Ertegun felt a chill run down his spine. He'd heard that tone before from other artists who were about to leave, but those artists had failed. The system always won. He didn't realize that Ray Charles wasn't like other artists. Ray Charles was about to break the system. Within weeks, Ray Charles made a decision that would terrify his friends, shock the industry, and change music history forever. The forbidden idea. Ray went to his lawyer, a cautious man named Jeff Brown, who specialized in entertainment contracts. "Jeff, I want to leave Atlantic." Jeff looked up from his paperwork. "Ray, Atlantic has been good to you. Ahmet respects your artistry. I want to own my master recordings." The room went silent. Jeff Brown's pen stopped moving. He stared at Ray for a long moment. "Ray, that's not how this works." "Then we'll make it work differently." "Ray, no artist owns their masters. Not even white artists. Frank Sinatra doesn't own his masters. Bing Crosby doesn't own his masters. You're talking about something that just doesn't exist in the music business." Ray leaned forward. His dark glasses reflected the office lights. "Jeff, when I was 7 years old, I watched my little brother drown. I couldn't save him because I was going blind. I've been told my whole life what I can't do. I can't see. I can't read regular music. I can't succeed as a blind black man in America. But here I am. So when you tell me I can't own my masters, I don't hear can't. I hear hasn't been done yet." Jeff Brown took a deep breath. "If you leave Atlantic without another deal in place, you'll have no income. You have a wife, Ray. You have bills. You have a heroin habit that costs you thousands a month. Yes, I know about that. You can't afford to gamble. I can't afford not to." The approach. While still under contract with Atlantic, Ray quietly reached out to other labels. ABC-Paramount Records was a Hollywood-based company trying to break into the music business. They had money but no prestige. They were hungry. Ray's message was simple. "I'm available, but I come with conditions." Sam Cooke, ABC's CEO, jumped at the opportunity. "Ray Charles? The Ray Charles? This could make ABC a major player." They scheduled a meeting for November 1959, ABC's conference room. Ray would present his terms. Sam Cooke expected negotiations. He expected Ray to want more money, maybe 20,000, maybe 25. Cooke was prepared to go as high as 35. He was not prepared for what Ray Charles actually wanted. The day of the meeting arrived, and Ray Charles walked in carrying a bomb disguised as a briefcase. The meeting, November 18, 1959, ABC-Paramount Records, Hollywood, California. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Sunset Boulevard. 6 executives sat around a mahogany table. Ray Charles entered with Jeff Brown and his business manager. Ray wore a dark suit and his signature sunglasses. He didn't need anyone to guide him to his chair. He'd memorized the room's dimensions during a previous visit. "Gentlemen," Ray began, "thank you for meeting with me. I'll be direct. I want to sign with ABC, but only under specific conditions." Sam Cooke smiled. He liked direct. "We're listening, Ray. First, I want a $50,000 advance against future royalties." The room stirred. That was a huge number for 1959, equivalent to nearly $500,000 today, but it wasn't impossible. Cooke nodded slowly. "We could potentially work with that number. Second, I want full ownership of all master recordings I create for ABC." The stirring stopped. The room went completely silent. One executive, a man named Harold Jenkins, spoke first. "I'm sorry, Mr. Charles, I don't think I heard you correctly. Did you say ownership? Complete ownership. ABC can distribute the records, promote them, sell them, but the masters themselves, the original recordings, belong to me. When the initial distribution deal ends, I keep the masters. I control how they're used. I collect the long-term revenue." Sam Cooke's smile had vanished. "Ray, that's not how we operate. That's not how anyone operates. Then we'll make history." Harold Jenkins leaned forward, his face reddening. "Mr. Charles, with all due respect, you're asking us to give away our most valuable asset. The masters are worth more than the initial sales. They're worth decades of revenue. We'd be handing you millions of dollars in future earnings for— Why would we ever agree to this?" Ray Charles smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man holding all the cards in a poker game. "Because," Ray said quietly, "you need me more than I need you." The room exploded. "Because you need me more than I need you." The words hung in the air like smoke. And then Harold Jenkins exploded. The room explodes. "Need you?" Jenkins's voice rose. "Mr. Charles, let's be clear about something. ABC-Paramount is a major corporation. We have resources. We have distribution. We have radio connections. We made you this meeting as a courtesy, but we don't need any single artist." Sam Cooke raised his hand, cutting Jenkins off. His eyes never left Ray. "Ray, help me understand something. You want $50,000, money we give you up front, which you keep even if the records fail. And you want us to give you ownership of the recordings, which means our long-term profit disappears. From our perspective, we're taking all the risk and getting only short-term rewards. Why would any rational company agree to this?" Ray tilted his head slightly. Even behind the dark glasses, you could sense him studying the room, reading the temperature, calculating his next move. "Mr. Cooke, you're right. It sounds irrational, unless you consider what you're actually getting, which is, Ray Charles, not just my past, my future. See, Atlantic Records made millions from me, but they also controlled me. They told me what to record. They told me when to record. They told me how to sound. And you know what? I did my best work when they got out of my way. What I say? That was an improvisation they almost didn't release. I got a woman. They called it blasphemous. Every innovation I've made happened when I fought them." Ray leaned forward. "ABC, you're not an established music label. You're trying to break into a market dominated by Columbia, RCA, Atlantic. You need something those labels don't have. You need an artist who's completely free. Free to innovate. Free to take risks. Free to create music that'll make you not just profitable, but legendary." Sam Cooke was listening now. Really listening. "If you own my masters," Ray continued, "you'll make money for 5, maybe 10 years. But if I own my masters and I'm creating freely, making the best music of my career, you'll make money during our contract period, and I'll keep making you look good afterward. Every success I have, people will say ABC discovered the new Ray Charles. ABC was smart enough to give him freedom." It was a brilliant argument, but Harold Jenkins wasn't convinced. And what happens when other artists hear about this deal? Every musician in America will demand the same terms. You'll destroy the industry's economic model. Ray smiled again. "Mr. Jenkins, I'm not destroying anything. I'm building something better. A system where artists are treated as partners, not products. You can either be the company that led that revolution, or the company that got left behind." The recess. Sam Cooke called for a 15-minute break. The ABC executives moved to a private office. Ray and his team waited in the conference room. Jeff Brown leaned close to Ray. "That was powerful, but I don't know if it's enough. Jenkins is against it, and he controls the financial decisions." "Then we walk," Ray said calmly. "Ray, if we walk away from this, you have no backup plan. Atlantic won't take you back. Not after you tried to leave. You'll be blackballed. Then I'll be blackballed. Jeff, I spent my entire childhood being told what I couldn't do. I'm not spending my adulthood expecting limitations other people put on me." In the private office, the ABC executives were in heated debate. ABC's dilemma. Harold Jenkins paced the room. This is insane. We're essentially becoming a distribution company for Ray Charles Incorporated. We take all the risk. He keeps all the long-term value. But think about the publicity. Another executive, Martin Foster, countered. First label to give an artist ownership. That's a headline. That brings attention. Attention doesn't pay the bills. Sam Cooke stood at the window, looking out at Hollywood. He was thinking about something his father had told him. In business, everyone wants to make the safe bet, but fortunes are made by the people brave enough to make the smart bet. Was this a smart bet or a stupid one? Ray Charles was the hottest artist in music. What I Say was still climbing the charts. His live performances sold out everywhere. He was a proven commodity, but giving away the masters, that violated every rule of the music business. If this became standard, the entire industry would revolt. On the other hand, what if Ray was right? What if freedom actually made him more productive? What if ABC became known as the label that treated artists fairly? And there was another calculation Sam Cooke was making, one he hadn't voiced yet. Ray Charles was a heroin addict. Everyone in the industry knew it. The FBI was building a case against him. There was a real possibility that Ray's career could implode within a few years. Arrest, prison, scandal. If that happened and ABC owned the masters, they'd be stuck with worthless recordings from a disgraced artist. But if Ray owned the masters and his career collapsed, that was Ray's problem, not ABC's. It was cold calculus, but business was cold. Gentlemen, Sam Cooke said, turning from the window, I'm approving the deal. Harold Jenkins's jaw dropped. Sam, this is a mistake. It's my mistake to make. We're giving Ray Charles what he wants, but we're adding protections. The advance is paid in installments, not all up front. We get a 7-year distribution exclusive, and if Ray gets arrested or can't fulfill his obligations, the masters revert to us. You really think he'll accept those terms? Sam Cooke smiled. If he's as smart as I think he is, he will, because he knows this is the best offer he'll ever get. They returned to the conference room. Ray Charles sat perfectly still, his fingers drumming silently on the table, waiting, calculating, hoping. The counteroffer. Sam Cooke sat it down. Ray, we've discussed your proposal. We're prepared to move forward, but with modifications. Ray's expression didn't change. I'm listening. We'll give you ownership of your master recordings. That's agreed. The $50,000 advance is agreed, but paid over 2 years, not up front. We want a 7-year exclusive distribution deal, meaning you can't sell your recordings through anyone else during that period. And we need a morality clause. If you're convicted of a crime or unable to perform your obligations, the masters revert to ABC until you're able to resume. Jeff Brown started to object, but Ray raised his hand. The installment payment is acceptable. Ray said, 7 years exclusive is acceptable, but the morality clause needs adjustment. If I'm arrested, the masters stay mine. ABC's distribution rights pause until the legal issue is resolved, but ownership never transfers. Once the legal problem is resolved, we resume our partnership. Sam Cooke considered this. If Ray went to prison, ABC wouldn't want to be distributing his records anyway. Bad publicity. This way they had an exit ramp without taking on Ray's legal baggage. Agreed. And I want full artistic control. ABC doesn't approve songs, doesn't approve arrangements, doesn't interfere with creative decisions. You distribute what I give you. That's unusual. That's essential. You're paying for Ray Charles unfiltered. If you wanted Ray Charles censored, you should have stayed with the old system. Harold Jenkins interjected. What if you give us uncommercial material? What if you record an album of polka music? Ray actually laughed. Mr. Jenkins, I've spent 15 years learning what audiences want. I promise you I won't record polka. But if I do, that's my problem. You still get your distribution fee. Sam Cooke made his decision. Artistic control is yours. We'll put it in writing. Ray extended his hand across the table. Then we have a deal. Sam Cooke shook it.
And in that moment, the music industry changed forever. The aftermath. Atlantic's fury. The news reached Atlantic Records within hours. Amit Ertegun was in his New York office when his secretary told him, "Ray Charles just signed with ABC-Paramount. And Amit, you need to hear the terms." When she explained the deal, Amit's face went white. "He owns the masters? ABC agreed to that?" "Yes." Amit picked up the phone. He called Ray directly. Ray answered on the third ring. "Ray, it's Amit." "Hello, Amit." "Ray, what did you do?" There was a long pause. "I did what I had to do. Ray, we built you. We took a chance on you when you were nobody. We gave you studio time, promotion support, and this is how you repay us, by leaving for a bigger check." Ray's voice was calm but firm. "Amit, you built your company on my talent. You made millions from my work. I'm grateful for the opportunity, but gratitude doesn't pay my bills or secure my future. The master ownership, Ray. Do you understand what you've done? Every artist in America is going to demand the same thing now. You've destroyed the business model. Good. Good. Ray, this is chaos. Amit, I love you like a brother, but you benefited from a system that exploited artists. If that system is destroyed, it deserved to be destroyed. And if other artists follow my path, that's progress, not chaos." Amit was quiet for a moment, then his voice softer. "Will you at least finish your contracted recordings with us? We have 2 more sessions scheduled. I'll honor my contracts, Amit. I always do. But after that, we're done." Amit hung up. He sat alone in his office, staring at the gold records on his wall. Ray Charles records representing millions in revenue. Jerry Wexler, his partner, entered. "You heard?" "I heard. He's right, you know," Wexler said quietly. "We did exploit him. We all exploited everyone. The whole industry is built on exploitation. Doesn't mean I have to like it when the exploitation ends." But while Amit Ertegun was mourning in New York, someone else was watching this revolution unfold with great interest. Someone who would soon follow Ray Charles's example, and his name was Sam Cooke. The ripple effect begins. Sam Cooke was a gospel-turned-soul singer, with a voice like honey. He'd been watching Ray Charles's career closely. They'd met several times, shared stages, talked late into the night about music and business. When Sam heard about Ray's ABC deal, he picked up the phone immediately. "Ray, it's Sam. Tell me everything." Ray explained the deal, the ownership, the creative control, the $50,000 advance. "And they actually agreed?" Sam asked, incredulous. "They agreed." "Ray, do you realize what you've done? I got a better contract." "No, brother. You opened a door. Every black artist in America has been getting robbed by these labels. You just showed us. We don't have to accept it." Ray was quiet for a moment. "Sam, if you're thinking about doing the same thing, be careful. ABC needed me. Your label might not need you the same way. You have to have leverage." "I have leverage. I'm Sam Cooke. And if Ray Charles can negotiate freedom, so can I." Within 6 months, Sam Cooke would start his own label. Within a year, James Brown would demand ownership of his recordings. Within 5 years, the entire power structure of the music industry would begin to shift. All because Ray Charles had the courage to walk into a room and say, "I want what I deserve." Della's fear. But that night, when Ray returned home to Los Angeles, his wife Della was waiting. She'd heard about the deal through the industry grapevine. "Ray, people are saying you left Atlantic for money. Let them say it. They're saying you're greedy. They're saying you betrayed Amit." Ray sat at his piano. His fingers found the keys automatically. He began playing a soft, melancholy melody. "Della, when I was a boy, I watched my brother drown. I couldn't save him. I was going blind and I couldn't save my own brother. That feeling, that helplessness, it never leaves you. For years I've felt that same helplessness in this industry. Talented artists, drowning in bad contracts. And I couldn't save them because I couldn't even save myself." His fingers continued playing, the melody growing stronger. Now I've saved myself. And maybe, just maybe, I've thrown a lifeline to everyone else. If people call that greed, I'll live with it, because I'd rather be called greedy and free than be called grateful and enslaved. Della sat beside him on the piano bench. What if it doesn't work? What if the ABC records flop? Ray smiled. Then I'll own the masters to the biggest failure in music history. But at least they'll be mine. Thus 6 months later, Ray Charles released his first ABC album, The Genius Hits the Road. And what happened next shocked everyone, including Ray himself.
June 1960. Ray Charles walked into Capitol Studios in Los Angeles to record his first album for ABC-Paramount. He owned the masters. He had complete creative control. And he was about to prove that freedom breeds genius. The genius hits the road. Ray had a concept for his first ABC album, and it was risky. Instead of churning out more R&B hits like What I Say, he wanted to record an album of songs about American geography. Songs about states, cities, roads. He'd call it The Genius Hits the Road. The ABC executives were confused. Ray, your fans want soul music. They want you at the piano with the raylets, making them dance. You're going to record songs about places. Ray's response was simple. You gave me creative control. This is what I'm creating. They couldn't argue. He had signed the contract. Ray recorded Alabama Bound, Basin Street Blues, Mississippi Mud. But the centerpiece, the song that would change everything, was a jazz standard from 1930 called Georgia on My Mind. Written by Hoagy Carmichael and Stuart Gorrell, Georgia on My Mind had been recorded by dozens of artists. It was a pretty song, but not particularly special. Until Ray Charles got his hands on it. Ray transformed it. He slowed it down. He added strings, lush, orchestral arrangements that had never been part of his sound before. He sang it with a vulnerability and longing that made grown men weep. When he recorded the final vocal take, the studio musicians sat in silence for a full minute afterward. The engineer finally spoke. Ray, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Ray smiled. That's Georgia. That's home. But here's what Ray didn't tell anyone. Georgia on My Mind wasn't just a love letter to his home state. It was a middle finger to it. The Georgia boycott. In 1961, Ray Charles was scheduled to perform at a segregated concert hall in Augusta, Georgia. The venue had separate seating. White people in the orchestra section. Black people in the balcony. Ray had been born in Georgia. He'd grown up under Jim Crow, and he was done accepting it. 3 days before the concert, Ray canceled. I won't perform in a segregated venue, he told his manager. Not in Georgia. Not anywhere. The Georgia political establishment was furious. How dare this blind singer, this had, I said privately. Think he could dictate terms to the great state of Georgia. The Georgia state legislature issued a statement. Ray Charles was no longer welcome to perform anywhere in the state. Radio stations across Georgia banned his music. For the next 4 years, Ray Charles couldn't work in his home state. And then Georgia on My Mind was released. The song became a massive hit. #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It crossed racial lines, geographical lines, generational lines. White people in the suburbs loved it. Black people in the cities loved it. Even segregationist politicians, the same ones who'd banned Ray from Georgia, found themselves humming it. The irony was exquisite. Georgia had rejected Ray Charles, and Ray Charles had made a song about Georgia, so beautiful, so definitive, that Georgia couldn't escape it. By 1965, the political winds had shifted. The Civil Rights Act had passed. Segregation was illegal, and Georgia quietly lifted its ban on Ray Charles. In 1979, the Georgia state legislature did something extraordinary. They made Georgia on My Mind the official state song. Ray Charles, the man they'd called a troublemaker, the man they'd banned,
had given Georgia its anthem. But Georgia on My Mind was just the beginning. Ray's bet on ownership was about to pay off in ways even he hadn't imagined. The financial revolution. The Genius Hits the Road sold over 1 million copies. Ray's follow-up albums dedicated to You, Genius Souls, A's Jazz, modern sounds in country and western music, sold even more. Under the old Atlantic system, Ray would have earned royalties, maybe 3% of sales, minus expenses, on an album that sold 1 million copies at $3 each. That's $3 million in revenue. Ray's cut, $90,000, minus recording costs, maybe $50,000 in his pocket. But under the ABC deal, Ray owned the masters. ABC paid him a larger royalty for the distribution period, around 10%. On that same million-selling album, Ray now earned $300,000. And after the 7-year ABC distribution deal ended, Ray kept the master. He could license them to other companies, use them in commercials, sell compilation albums. The masters generated income for decades. By 1965, Ray Charles was a millionaire. By 1970, he was worth over $5 million. By the time he died in 2004, his estate was valued at $75 million. But here's the beautiful part. Most of that wealth came not from new recordings, but from the masters he owned. Georgia on My Mind, recorded in 1960, generated revenue for 44 years of Ray's life. Every time it played on the radio, Ray got paid. Every time it was used in a movie, Ray got paid. Every time someone bought a compilation album, Ray got paid. That's the power of ownership. ABC-Paramount made money too. Lots of it during their 7-year distribution deal. But when that deal ended, they lost access to the golden goose. Meanwhile, Ray kept laying golden eggs for the rest of his life. Sam Cooke, the ABC executive who'd approved the deal, later said, "We thought we were being generous. We didn't realize we were being outsmarted." The followers, but the bigger revolution was happening across the industry. Other artists had been watching Ray Charles, and they wanted what he had. Sam Cooke was first. In 1961, he founded SR Records, his own label where he owned everything. He signed other black artists, gave them better deals than the major labels offered. Sam died tragically in 1964, but his model survived. James Brown came next. The godfather of soul negotiated ownership of his master recordings. When his label balked, James walked away and found a label that would agree. Like Ray, James became wealthy, not just from performing, but from owning his catalog. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, demanded ownership provisions in her contracts. So did Stevie Wonder. So did Marvin Gaye. By the 1970s, master ownership wasn't a crazy demand anymore. It was a negotiation point. Artists with leverage could get it. The revolution Ray started was becoming normal. But the revolution wasn't complete. Most artists still didn't have the leverage to demand ownership. The labels adapted, offering slightly better royalties, but keeping the masters. The exploitation continued, just in a gentler form. It would take another 50 years and another generation of artists to finish what Ray Charles started, because the battle Ray fought in 1959 is still being fought in the modern master wars. In 2019, Taylor Swift discovered that her former label Big Machine Records had sold the masters to her first 6 albums to a music executive named Scooter Braun. Taylor was devastated. She'd tried to buy her masters back, but the label refused. So Taylor did something radical. She started re-recording her old albums from scratch. Taylor's version of each album, with masters she owned. She told her fans to stream the new versions, not the old ones. It worked. Taylor's re-recorded albums outsold the originals. Scooter Braun's investment became worthless. Taylor Swift was using Ray Charles's playbook. Control your masters, control your destiny. Beyoncé and Jay-Z built their empire on ownership. They negotiated master ownership for every album. They created their own management companies, their own streaming platforms. When Beyoncé released Renaissance in 2022, she owned every note. Kanye West famously called recording contracts modern-day slavery and urged artists to demand their master. He's tried unsuccessfully so far to buy back his own catalog from Universal Music Group. The battle isn't over. Major labels still hold the masters to thousands of artists' work, but the conversation has changed. Because of Ray Charles, artists know ownership is possible. They know it's worth fighting for. The price of revolution. But Ray's revolution came with personal costs he never talked about publicly. His relationship with Ahmet Ertegun never fully recovered. They remained cordial, but the friendship was broken. Ahmet felt betrayed. Ray felt vindicated. Neither was entirely wrong. Ray's heroin addiction worsened after the ABC deal. The pressure of living up to his new contract, the weight of being a symbol for artist rights, the exhausting touring schedule, it all pushed him deeper into drugs. In 1965, Ray was arrested at Boston's Logan Airport with heroin. He faced decades in prison. He narrowly avoided it by checking into a rehabilitation facility and quitting cold turkey, an agonizing process he later called the hardest thing I ever did. Some wondered, did the freedom Ray fought for also give him the freedom to destroy himself? Did ownership of his career mean nobody could tell him to slow down, get help, protect himself? Ray never answered those questions directly, but in his autobiography he wrote, "Freedom isn't just the right to succeed, it's also the right to fail. I'd rather have the freedom to make my own mistakes than the security of letting someone else make my decisions." The final accounting. Ray Charles died on June 10. He'd been battling liver disease for years. Decades of heroin use and hard living had taken their toll. But he died free, and wealthy, and vindicated. At his funeral, dozens of music industry figures spoke. Ahmet Ertegun was there. He and Ray had reconciled in the final years. Ahmet gave a eulogy. Ray Charles was a genius, but he was also a revolutionary. He changed not just what we listened to, but how artists were treated. The industry fought him. I fought him. And he was right. He was right about everything. Ray's estate was valued at $75 million. His 17 children from 10 different women fought bitterly over the inheritance, but even divided 17 ways, each child received millions. Ray's decision to own his masters had secured his family's future for generations, but the real legacy wasn't the money. It was the door Ray opened. Today, when a young artist negotiates their first record deal, their lawyer says, "Let's talk about master ownership." That conversation happens because of Ray Charles. When Beyoncé performs at a stadium, keeping every dollar from her catalog, that's Ray Charles's legacy. When Taylor Swift re-records her albums to reclaim her art, that's Ray Charles's legacy. When a 22-year-old kid uploads their music to Spotify and keeps the rights, that's Ray Charles's legacy. The last word. In 2002, 2 years before he died, Ray Charles gave an interview. The reporter asked him, "Looking back, what are you most proud of?" Ray thought for a long moment. "People think I'm going to say Georgia on my mind or the Grammy Awards, and those are nice. But you know what I'm really proud of? In 1959, I walked into a room and said no. I said no to the way things had always been. I said no to accepting less than I deserved. And I didn't blink." Was it scary? The reporter asked. Ray smiled. "Terrifying, but being blind teaches you something. You can't see the obstacles in front of you, so you might as well move forward. The scariest thing isn't failure. It's dying without knowing what you could have been if you just had the courage to bet on yourself." The reporter had one more question. "What would you tell young artists today?" Ray's answer was simple. Own your work. Fight for it. Because if you don't own your art, someone else will own your life, and that's not a life worth living. The music industry, Ray Charles revolutionized, still exists. Record labels still try to control artists. Contracts still favor corporations over creators. The battle isn't over, but it's winnable, because Ray Charles proved it could be won. In November 1959, a blind black man walked into a room full of powerful white executives and demanded the impossible, and he got it. Not because he was lucky, not because they were generous, but because he understood something that changed everything. The person who owns the art controls the future. Ray Charles made a $50,000 bet in 1959. That bet earned him $75 million by the time he died. But more importantly, it earned him something money can't buy: freedom. And that freedom echoes through every song, every album, every artist who stands up and says, "I own this. This is mine." That's the real genius of Ray Charles. Not just the music, the revolution. The next time you hear "Georgia on My Mind," remember, you're not just hearing a beautiful song, you're hearing the sound of a man who refused to be owned, a man who bet everything on himself, a man who changed the rules because the rules were wrong. Ray Charles couldn't see, but he saw the future clearer than anyone, and the future was freedom.